The silence of this apartment, once a comfort, now feels like a shroud. It's been months, but every corner still whispers her name, echoes her laughter, a phantom limb ache in the quiet of a New Orleans night. Celeste. Even the name feels like a betrayal now. I sit here, guitar across my lap, but the notes won't come. My fingers hover over the fretboard, paralyzed by a past that refuses to stay buried. She just vanished, like smoke in a humid breeze, leaving behind only questions and a gaping, hollow wound where my heart used to be. I loved her, truly, madly, with an artist's boundless devotion. I believed she was my muse, my other half, the melody to my unspoken lyrics. The idea that she could simply cease to exist, to evaporate without a trace, was unthinkable. And yet, she did. Or rather, Celeste did. The woman I knew, the woman I poured my soul into, she was never real. And that's the part that still twists my gut into knots, the part that makes me question everything I ever felt, everything I ever believed about myself and about love. New Orleans, my city, used to sing to me. Now, its vibrant chaos feels muted, a backdrop to my own internal dissonance. I play gigs, I try to smile, I tell people I'm fine, but it's a performance. Inside, I'm a mess of abandonment and unsettling questions that claw at my peace, demanding answers I never thought I'd find. I met her at a small gallery opening in the Marigny, a place filled with the kind of earnest, slightly pretentious art that always made me smile. She was standing in front of a charcoal sketch, her head tilted, a lock of deep auburn hair falling across her cheek. She wore a simple black dress, but she radiated this almost ethereal glow, like moonlight caught in amber. I remember her turning, catching my eye, and the world just narrowed. Her eyes, a startling shade of green, held a depth I instantly wanted to drown in. She introduced herself as Celeste, an artist, a wanderer. She spoke with a soft, melodic voice, hinting at a past that felt distant and romanticized. We talked for hours that night, about art, about music, about the soul's yearning for expression. It felt like finding a lost piece of myself. She understood my struggles, my aspirations, the unique burdens and joys of being a musician in a city that's both inspiring and indifferent. She listened with an intensity that made me feel truly seen for the first time. I felt an instant, undeniable connection, like our souls were humming the same tune. Looking back, the red flags were there, fluttering like faint, ignored warnings. Her stories about her past were always a little vague, a little too perfect. A difficult childhood, a nomadic existence, parents who didn't understand her artistic spirit. All designed, I realize now, to foster sympathy, to create a narrative that made her self-contained life seem understandable. She never talked about her family in detail, never offered to call them, never showed me pictures. It was always about her journey, her evolution. I just chalked it up to an artist's brooding depth, a sensitive soul's need for privacy. I was so damn naive. She moved in with me quickly, almost seamlessly. My little shotgun house, already bursting with my instruments and scores, suddenly felt alive, vibrant, filled with her energy, her sketches, her paints. She had a way of making everything feel beautiful, even the mundane. She'd critique my music, but always gently, always with suggestions that seemed to elevate it, to push me further. I swore she was the only person who truly understood my creative vision. She became my everything, my muse, my confidant, my lover. I was utterly, hopelessly hers. But a subtle shift began to occur, a slow, insidious erosion of my confidence. She'd praise my music, but then follow it with a hesitant, "It's almost perfect, Noah, but don't you think it lacks a certain edge? Maybe you're too comfortable here." Or, "Your friends are lovely, but do they really understand the depth of what you're trying to achieve?" True artists need to challenge each other. Suddenly, the camaraderie I shared with my bandmates felt superficial, my long-standing friendships, less meaningful. She was subtly isolating me, framing it as protecting my artistic purity, my focus. And I, in my blind adoration, bought it. Money became an unspoken tension. Celeste always had grand ideas for her art, elaborate canvases, expensive materials, gallery shows that never quite materialized. My gigs, even the lucrative ones, always seemed to just cover our expenses, with little left over. I remember her once saying, her hand gently tracing my jawline, "Noah, darling, your talent is immense. You should be charging more, demanding more. These people, they exploit artists like us, don't they?" She'd talk about the system, about how we needed to be smart to protect our intellectual property, our financial future. She'd ask about contracts I'd signed, the details of my royalty statements, always with an air of concern for my well-being, for our shared future. I saw it as her caring for me, wanting to help me navigate the predatory world of music. Now, I see it for what it was, reconnaissance. I started to feel off-kilter. My sleep was restless. I'd wake in the middle of the night, sometimes finding her awake, staring out the window, a distant, unreadable look on her face. If I asked what was wrong, she'd simply sigh. "Just thinking about the impermanence of things, darling. Our art, our lives, it all slips through our fingers so easily." Her answers were always poetic, always deflecting. I began to walk on eggshells, trying to anticipate her moods, to keep the peace. I loved her so deeply, but there was a growing fear, a whisper of unease that I constantly tried to silence. She was my world, and yet, I felt myself shrinking within it. The real turning point, the moment I felt the ground truly crumble beneath me, involved a grant. I'd been working for months on a proposal for a prestigious New Orleans jazz grant, something that could catapult my career. Celeste had been my biggest cheerleader, helping me refine my concept, even suggesting I include some of her visual art as a complementary component. We put everything into it, late nights, endless revisions. I was so sure this was it. The grand announcement came, and I didn't get it. Not only did I not get it, but the feedback was brutal. They cited insufficient originality, lack of clear financial planning, and a weak understanding of market potential. I was devastated, heartbroken. I knew my proposal inside and out. I'd poured my soul into it. How could it be so terrible? Celeste was there, comforting me, holding me as I wept. "Those old guard institutions, Noah, they just don't understand true vision," she'd said, stroking my hair. "They want safe, predictable. You're too brilliant for them." But something inside me snapped. I remembered one evening, a few weeks before the deadline, when I'd seen her on my laptop, open to my grant application draft. She'd said she was just reviewing for typos. I asked her about it that night, my voice trembling with a nascent suspicion. "Celeste," I started, "I know you were helping, but did you make any changes to the proposal after I sent you the final version?" Her eyes, usually so warm and understanding, hardened almost imperceptibly. "Noah, what are you talking about? Of course not. Why would I? Do you think so little of me?" Her voice was soft, wounded. "Are you implying I would sabotage you? Is that what you truly believe?" My heart hammered against my ribs. No, no, it's just the feedback was so harsh. It felt like they were talking about a completely different project. She pulled away slightly, her expression shifting to one of profound disappointment. "You're stressed, darling. I understand. But to accuse me, your partner, your biggest supporter? It hurts, Noah. It truly hurts that you could think such a thing. Perhaps you're projecting your own insecurities, your own fears of failure onto me." She got up, walked to the window, her back to me. "I only ever want to help you. If my help feels like sabotage, perhaps I should just step back. Perhaps I'm not good enough for you." I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Guilt. How could I have accused her? She was right. I was stressed. I was upset, and I was lashing out. I went to her, wrapped my arms around her, apologized profusely. I told her I loved her, that I trusted her more than anyone. She eventually turned, her eyes still a little misty, and kissed me. "I know you do, my love. It's okay. We'll get through this. It's just us against the world, remember?" And in that moment, I believed her. I pushed the nagging doubt back down, buried it deep. It was my fault. I was paranoid. I was letting my own anxieties ruin something beautiful. That was the gaslighting, the true psychological pressure that made me question my own sanity, my own perceptions. I remember feeling a cold dread, a heavy sense of being trapped, but I couldn't articulate why. I just knew I couldn't lose her. Then, one morning, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just an empty space in the bed beside me, her side of the closet bare, her art supplies, usually scattered, neatly packed away. For 2 days, I called her phone relentlessly. It went straight to voicemail. I called her vague friends, none of whom seemed to know her well, or even knew she had a boyfriend. I checked her favorite coffee shops, the galleries she frequented. Nothing. It was like she had simply evaporated. My heart was a raw, exposed nerve. The abandonment was a physical pain, a constant ache behind my sternum. I called the police, but they just took a report. She's an adult, sir. She's allowed to leave. I was a wreck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My music was just noise. My friends tried to help, but I couldn't tell them what was truly wrong. How could I explain that the woman I loved, my artistic soulmate, had simply vanished, leaving a void that felt like a black hole? The apartment, once so full of her presence, now felt haunted by her absence. A week later, still in a haze of grief and confusion, I stumbled across one of her old art cases in the back of a closet. She'd left it behind, probably by accident. It was a sturdy, wooden case, scuffed and painted with abstract designs. It felt like a betrayal to even touch it, but I needed something, anything, a tangible piece of her. I opened it, hoping to find a forgotten sketch, a half-finished painting, something to hold on to. Instead, my fingers brushed against a false bottom. My breath hitched. With trembling hands, I pried it open. Inside, neatly tucked away, was a collection of objects that shattered my world into a million irreparable pieces. Multiple fake IDs, each with her face, but different names, different birth dates, different states. A burner phone, cheap and generic, its screen dark. And a stack of spiral notebooks, filled with her elegant, distinctive handwriting. Not sketches, but meticulous notes. Details of various personas, complete with backstories, accents, even subtle shifts in gait and mannerisms. And then, the chilling realization, my name. My bandmates' names. Details about my publishing deals, my financial accounts, my network of struggling artists. It was all there. A detailed scheme, outlining how to infiltrate artistic communities, build trust, gather intellectual property, and exploit financial data. My own life, meticulously cataloged, analyzed, and ultimately plundered. The woman I loved, Celeste, was a ghost. A meticulously crafted identity. A predator. The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. I fell back against the wall, the art case clattering to the floor. The fake IDs fanned out like a macabre hand of cards. Celeste. Every laugh, every shared dream, every whispered secret, every kiss, a lie. A calculated performance. I wasn't abandoned. I was harvested. My heart, my art, my life. All of it had been dissected, analyzed, and used for profit. The humiliation was a hot, burning flush that spread through my entire body. I felt physically ill, my stomach churning, my head pounding. The grief for the woman I thought she was immediately twisted into a consuming rage, a deep, bitter anger that scalded my throat. I remember curling into a ball on the floor, surrounded by the physical evidence of my betrayal, and just screaming. Not a loud, angry scream, but a raw, guttural sound that tore from my chest, choked with tears and disbelief. I cried until there were no more tears, until my face was swollen and blotchy. I felt like the biggest fool on the planet, a gullible artist who'd fallen for the most elaborate con imaginable. The shame of it was almost unbearable. How could I have been so blind? So utterly, completely stupid? For days, I moved through life like a zombie. The grief was still there, but now it was a twisted, distorted mockery of what it once was. It wasn't for Celeste. It was for the Noah who had loved her, the Noah who had believed in something so pure, so beautiful. That Noah was dead, replaced by a shell of a man haunted by the ghost of a lie. But eventually, the rage started to solidify into something else, resolve. I wasn't just a victim. I was a survivor, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I found the burner phone. It contained a few cryptic texts, some encrypted. But one detail stood out: a name, a location, and a date. A gallery opening in New York City, 6 months from now. And a name I didn't recognize. Another persona. I threw myself into research. I Googled identity theft artist scam. I scoured online forums, deep dives into obscure corners of the internet. And that's when I found it. A small, tight-knit online community of artists who had been victims of similar scams. The stories were chillingly similar to mine. Charismatic women, often posing as fellow artists, who would charm their way into lives, steal data, siphon funds, and vanish. The emotional manipulation was always key, the art of making the victim feel utterly understood, utterly dependent. Reading their stories was a painful but profound awakening. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. Other people had seen the same inconsistencies, felt the same subtle manipulations, suffered the same devastating betrayal. There was a woman, a sculptor from Santa Fe, who described her own muse in terms that mirrored Celeste almost exactly. The vague past, the intense focus, the help with financial planning, the eventual disappearance. It was a pattern, a playbook. The shared experience was a lifeline. These strangers, these fellow victims, understood the unique sting of being exploited not just for money, but for the very essence of your creative soul. They helped me piece together the puzzle, shared tips on how to track digital footprints, how to navigate the murky waters of online investigation. I learned about burner phones, dark web marketplaces, and the terrifying efficiency of these predators. The date for the New York gallery opening loomed closer. I spent weeks preparing, gathering every scrap of evidence. Printouts of her fake IDs, screenshots of the notes in her notebooks, bank statements showing suspicious withdrawals that I dismissed as joint expenses. My hands trembled as I packed my bag, not with clothes for a relaxing trip, but with the heavy burden of my shattered past. I was terrified, yes, but also filled with a cold, righteous fury. I needed to look into her eyes, the eyes of the woman who had stolen my life, and demand an accounting. The gallery in Chelsea was predictably chic, buzzing with the kind of self-important chatter I usually avoided. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, each beat echoing the fear and adrenaline coursing through me. I scanned the room, a predator myself, but with a different kind of hunger. And then I saw her. She was standing by a striking abstract piece, laughing, her head thrown back, a lock of deep auburn hair falling across her cheek. She wore a sophisticated dress, a vibrant red that caught the gallery lights. She was captivating, effortlessly charming, surrounded by a group of aspiring artists, all hanging on her every word. She was Celeste again, but with a different name, a different accent, a slightly different story, weaving her web anew. The same captivating smile, the same magnetic eyes, the same lies. My stomach lurched. I moved through the crowd, each step deliberate, my gaze locked on her. She noticed me, finally, her eyes flicking up, bright and expectant. For a split second, a flicker of recognition, a brief ghost of the woman I knew, crossed her face. Then, it was gone, replaced by a cool, practiced blankness. I waited until she was momentarily alone, excusing herself from her admirers. I approached her, my voice low, raw with months of suppressed emotion. Celeste, I said, the name a bitter taste on my tongue. Her head snapped up. Her green eyes, once my sanctuary, were now cold, calculating. I believe you have me mistaken for someone else, sir, she said, her voice smooth, unaffected, the New York accent crisp. I pulled out a photograph, a grainy printout of one of the fake IDs. Do I? Because this woman, calling herself Eleanor Vance, looks an awful lot like you. I laid it on a nearby pedestal. Then another, and another. Or perhaps Isabella Rossi. Or maybe Chloe Du Bois. Her composure didn't crack immediately. She simply stared at the photos, then at me. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk played on her lips. You've been busy, Noah. The use of my name, so casual, so devoid of affection, was like a punch to the gut. I've been learning, I replied, my voice shaking slightly despite my efforts. Learning who you really are, what you really do, the lives you ruin. I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of printouts, the notes, the evidence of her scheme, the details of my own life. I know about the burner phone, the identities, the data theft, the financial manipulation, the intellectual property you've stolen from struggling artists. Her gaze hardened, turning into something truly predatory. The warmth, the charm, it evaporated, revealing the chilling abyss beneath. And what exactly do you think you're going to do with that, Noah? Her voice was still quiet, but it carried an edge of steel. Go to the police. Tell them what? That your pretty little muse wasn't who she said she was? That you let yourself be conned? Who do you think they'll believe? The broken artist, or the respectable gallery goer with a sterling reputation and friends in high places? A shiver ran down my spine, but I refused to back down. I'll tell them the truth. And I'll tell every single person in that online forum. Every single victim you've left in your wake. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, cold and lethal. And what makes you think you'd live long enough to tell anyone, darling? You really think you're the first person to try and expose me? This isn't some amateur game, Noah. You step out of line, you embarrass me, and you'll find yourself not only discredited, but disappeared. Permanently. You think you know me? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Her eyes, once pools of emerald warmth, were now chips of ice. The sheer, ruthless calculation behind them was terrifying. She wasn't just a con artist. She was a criminal, a dangerous manipulator with no conscience. I saw the monster in her then, fully, unequivocally. The woman I had loved was a complete fabrication, a meticulously constructed weapon designed to inflict maximum emotional and financial damage. The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. My heart hammered against my ribs, but strangely, a new kind of resolve solidified in me. The fear was potent, but so was the clarity. This was not a heartbroken man facing his lost love. This was a man facing a predator. I didn't answer her. I simply looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time, saw nothing but emptiness. I turned and walked away, not running, but with a deliberate, measured pace that surprised even myself. The flight back to New Orleans was a blur. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation was a cocktail of fear, anger, and a strange sense of liberation. Her threat was terrifying, yes, but it also stripped away the last vestiges of the illusion. There was no Celeste to mourn anymore, only a criminal to expose. I went to the authorities, presenting my evidence, including the recordings I discreetly made of our conversation at the gallery. It was a long, arduous process. My story, combined with the detailed information from the online victim community, finally built a formidable case. The other victims came forward, emboldened by my courage, their individual fragments of truth weaving into a powerful narrative. It took time, but Celeste, or whatever her real name was eventually apprehended. The news brought a strange mix of relief and hollow victory. Justice was served, yes, but it couldn't erase the scars. The wound she left was deep, a phantom limb that still ached with the memory of a love that never was. I had loved a ghost, a beautifully rendered lie, and coming to terms with that was, and still is, a daily struggle. The apartment still whispers, but the echoes are fading. The guitar across my lap no longer feels paralyzed. The trauma, the betrayal, the profound sense of being utterly used. I've poured it all into my music. My new compositions are raw, stripped bare, filled with a melancholic beauty born of pain and resilience. They speak of shadows and echoes, of the deceptive allure of facades, but also of the unwavering strength of the human spirit. My art became my anchor, my voice, my healing. I found freedom in facing the truth, no matter how ugly. I continue to work with the online victim community, lending my voice, my experience, my strength to others who have fallen prey to similar predators. I share my story, not for pity, but for empowerment, to help others navigate their own betrayals and find their way back to themselves. The silence of my apartment is different now. It's not a shroud, but a canvas. The notes finally come, hesitant at first, then flowing, a melody of bittersweet remembrance and hard-won hope. I lost a love that was never real, but in its place, I found my true self, my purpose, and a deeper, more profound connection to my art than I ever imagined possible. I am not a victim anymore. I am a survivor, and my music sings the song of my liberation.